Call the meeting, March 11th board meeting to order. First thing we'll do is roll.
Commissioner Clark,
Here.
Commissioner Persky.
Here.
Is Commissioner Lensmeyer joining us?
There's a technical problem apparently.
Technical problem, okay. Commissioner Knott. Here. Commissioner Bertram.
Here. Okay, let's all please stand for a moment of silence and a pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So we have the agenda in front of us. The first motion would be to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Commissioner Clark moves the agenda.
Second.
Commissioner Notch seconds the agenda. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The next motion would be to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Commissioner Notch moves the consent agenda. Commissioner Clark seconds it. Any discussion? Randy?
Just a note on the minutes, there's a couple little technical problems you guys are aware of, so just to make sure that's in there, yes.
One of them was humorous. We'll, we have corrected it, so.
That's true.
Good. So all those in favor of the moving the, or approving the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, consent agenda is approved. Well, as always, our annual report, we're fortunate to be joined by Dennis Fuchs and his crew. Tom, for the record, Tom Gregory brought cookies again, as his tradition is. We'll pass those around as Dennis has given his report. And if it isn't appropriate for us to have cookies, the evidence will be gone by the end of the meeting, so no one's going to be able to approve it. So, welcome, Dennis. Introduce yourself for the record and present the report.
Good morning, Commissioners. Dennis Fuchs, Administrator of the Stearns Conservation District. And to my left is Justine Meyer, Chair of the Board. And we're here to give the 2024 annual report. I want to start off by thanking the County Commissioners for their sustained support of the Stearns Conservation District. As you know, we don't have taxing authority, and the county provides the baseline funding that allows us to leverage many state and federal funds, and also allows us to work with many partners as illustrated in this slide. Getting right into the meat, you look at the operational funding there from 2022 to 2024, you did see a slight bump. The operational funding is what it takes to keep the lights on, the vehicles, the computers, and staff. Staff is the most largest component of the funding, and we did have some increases in health insurance and a slight bump in salaries based on the inflationary increase following the OPM with the feds. And then if you look at the project program and funding, you can see we brought in $10.1 million in state, federal, and local funds. Those funds went out to our landowners in the county, where the technical assistance is provided by the Conservation District, and those funds are offset a majority of the cost to the landowners to protect and restore their projects and conserve our soils. Just want to mention, for every dollar the county gives us, this past year, we brought in $11 in state and federal funding. We've been in the business for 75 years. Last year, we celebrated our 75th anniversary in October. And just some photos here of some of the past staff and projects that we worked on. Just want to point out here is former Commissioner Don Oddie and his wife Edna. They were river-friendly farmers back in the day. Personnel accomplishments. Mark Lefebvre was honored last February in San Diego as being the recipient of the Hugh Hammond Bennett Conservation Planner of the Country Award. They only give out one of those, and this is premier. And this is the second staff person from the Stearns Conservation District that received that award. The other person that received that award was Brad Wenz. Just amazing to have that type of staff on your team. You're going to win a Super Bowl when you have people like that on a team. And we've got Stephanie Hadson-Beeler, recipient of the Deborah Swackhammer Award for Excellence in Water Resource Management. I think some of you have had an opportunity to meet her. She's our water plan coordinator, just a fantastic addition to the team, and has really been accelerating the planning efforts across the county. Chuck Uphoff, he retired last year, and that's part of the reason why Justine Meyer has been appointed to finish out his term. And Chuck was a great loss, but we have a great addition with Justine, so we're very, very excited to have her expertise on the board. The West Central Technical Service area, that's a professional engineer and technicians that are shared across the area. 4 of those folks are Stearns SWCD staff, and the rest are, one was a Todd. He actually they're filling that position right now, and the other is Stevens, located out there as an engineering technician. And you can see the amount of projects these folks assisted with. Stearns once again leading the effort in getting projects assisted and helping our landowners solve their natural resource concerns. These people are funded mostly with a state grant and then some local contributions using watershed-based implementation funding and other local sources to help pay for the staffing of the engineering assistance. Lots of educational and outreach activities, just highlighting a few of them here. And I won't get into a lot of detail, but we do cover the whole county with these events, and we'll be moving into different areas again this year, kind of within the watershed planning areas to make sure that we've got our outreach efforts moving forward in the right direction. We had a 2024 photo contest. You can see the photos there. This was incorporated into a calendar. This gives us a great opportunity to use some of the beautiful photos from across Stearns County in our promotional items. Ag resource management, we've had a total of 78 projects completed, a wide variety of projects, and I'll dig into them a little bit more as we move forward here. But you can see they, again, we're scattered across the county. We do focus in areas that have been identified in our comprehensive local water management plan, so we can't help everybody that is scattered around. We try to focus in areas where we're going to get the biggest bang for our taxpayer dollars. But we also work with the Natural Resources Conservation Service, and they can also lend assistance to those folks that are not in the priority areas. So we really have a tag team effort here in Stearns to make sure everybody gets their projects implemented. Our outstanding conservationist this past year was the Hooterman family out of Startell and Meadowbrook Dairy. They were recognized as the Stearns County Outstanding Conservationist and the state of Minnesota's Outstanding Conservationist. So they were recognized at the state convention and also this past weekend at our Pheasants River banquet at the Park Event Center. A great family implementing a numerous amount of conservation practices on their farm, and then they're also sharing this on farmer panels and workshops and field days, just very proactive in getting the word out. Just talking about some of the ag resource management projects, one highlighted here is reduced tillage. One of the principles of soil health is to reduce the amount of disturbance of soil, and it's the first step in conserving soil. And I'm sure some of you have saw the wind this past winter and open and the snert in our road ditches. It just brings a tear to my eye when I see that. If you have any additional questions, don't be afraid to stop me and I'll get to it. This here project is the project that was done in the northeast part of the county, and this is where the county provided some of the American Recovery Program funds to help address this manure management system. Up in this part of the county, we're seeing accelerated nutrient and bacteria problems moving into the Mississippi River upstream of the city of St. Cloud's water intake. So this was a great project to help reduce the amount of bacteria and nutrients moving into the city of St. Cloud's drinking water supply. Ag Resource Management, we got a grass waterway here, and this one really was an effective project in reducing the amount of sediment and phosphorus by tons for sediment and massive amounts of pounds of phosphorus moving into the Sauk River. Another project highlighted here is the prescribed grazing. This is between Richmond and Cold Spring and the Bacchus Lake subwatershed in the Sauk watershed. And this is again a project where we utilize our partners' funding with the Nature Conservancy, a project called All Acres for Our Water. We also had a bunch of shoreline and wetland projects done throughout the county. One of them highlighted here is a shoreline restoration on the upper Spunk Creek. And this was funded through the Midwest Glacial Lakes Partnership and also the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. We've got numerous wildlife habitat and protection projects, 87 of those across the county. We have our wildlife habitat steward for 2024 was a No family, Mike and Diane there pictured. We've got a prairie planting and wetland restoration. This is in our sensitive North Browns Lake area, a great project where we're seeing some nutrients moving into North Browns Lake. So this is just a great project to help slow down some of those nutrients entering that lake. Community conservation, these are our nitrate clinic events that were held throughout the county from 2021 to 2024. We've been rotating throughout the county to make sure that everybody can have their private well water tested. And as we know, we've been seeing an increase in nitrates in some of our areas across the county. And this is just a great way for folks that are on private wells to make sure that their drinking water is safe. Community conservation, another project highlighted here is the Sartell High School pollinator habitat planting. The students were very active in this project and restored numerous acres around the school to create pollinator habitat. And this is just a great project. And again, lots of partners, Pheasants Forever, St. Stephen's Sportsman's Club, and others. And looking ahead into 2025, we've got the new logo. We'll be working that into rolling that out here this year. And we also got a farmer-led conservation group. We're going to be looking at getting farmers more involved with getting the word out about soil health practices. They'd rather hear from farmers than an administrator. So we'll get those farmers involved with that. And then our comprehensive watershed management plan, the Mississippi River St. Cloud Watershed Collaborative has been approved, and that will be moving forward as a joint powers entity. That's very exciting. The Stearns Conservation District will be the fiscal agent, if approved, for that project. And then Stephanie is leading the effort for the Mississippi River Sartell Watershed Collaborative. And that's a lot of work pulling partners together to come up with a good plan. And then I'd just like to thank the county commissioners for 29 years of support in my career. And this is my last delivery to the county commissioners of the updates. And I'll be retiring the end of May, and I'd like to see each and every one of you at Milk and Honey Cider on Thursday, May 29th, after 3 p.m. Get that on your calendar.
Well, Dennis, I have to ask you, how can you retire? You're younger than I am. There's something not right about that. And if you can have your team win the Super Bowl, I think we'd be approved. Loaning them to the Vikings, go for it. If you can make that happen, that would be great. On page 5, where you showed Don Oddie, I'd be remiss in not going back to that page if you can quick, because I'm the chair, so I can do it. My dad is on that picture. The second picture from the top, with the 4 individuals there. That's my dad on the right side, second person in. The boys got a kick out of that because they never saw him that young. Obviously, he was older by the time, but they got a kick out of that. But Dad was on the ESCS FSA board for many, many years, and seen Urban Frank and Andy Stang and Mr. Rooney certainly brought back memories, so that was
Thank
good.
you for pointing that out.
The history of, just so you know, I did read the report, so be ahead of time. But the history of, we talked about this at the extension, Commissioner Notch and I, Francis Januska was the face of extension. I mean, and I guess I am old now, but I'm not that old, but that was the face. And of course, Joe Fitzgerald with Soil and Water. They were like icons in the community, and certainly you've done a good job. So if you are leaving, you're not going to be back again. Obviously, I was always proud of you because we're both from Spring Hill, so you've had a great career, and it's really unique when you can have people that are from Stearns County be the directors. You know, Steve Frericks with FSA now, you know, coming from Melrose. Those are unique relationships and partnerships, and I think make a program better because they're a little bit more sensitive to Stearns County because they came from Stearns County. So what's the process for a new director? I'm curious.
We're working through the application process right now. There's a vacancy announcement, and that'll close March 21st. We've received a couple of applications. The first cut will be completed with the interview committee, which includes the chair of the board, Justine, myself, the management team, and also Shelley Benson from Environmental Services. And then we'll get down to 3-4 finalists, and then we'll have the board make the final decision after they give a presentation on what they see for the future of the Conservation District. And that'll be at the May 11th board meeting.
And then just the last point that I'll make is, as I always share with you privately and publicly, when we do the projects, I always encourage you to do the projects as reasonably as you can, because my sense always is that we overcomplicate projects, and I know sometimes that's because of federal and state funding that comes with it. But the more we overcomplicate them, the more the increase of the cost and the less projects we can do. You know, so I always encourage you to do as many projects as we can, because there's a lot of folks out there, farmers, lake shore owners, that want some type of assistance. But more than once I've been told, well, we looked into it, and then by the time we found out what it would cost us, even though there's a lot of cost sharing that goes on, we decided not to do it. Well, again, the more we can more projects we can do long-term, and I know you agree with that. We talked about that, but I'll make that point anyway. Commissioner Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And before I go to you, Mr. Fuchs, I just want to say that when I look at pictures of my grandmother now, from when I was a teenager, she looks so much younger now than she did when I was a teenager. So that's part of it, right? I too just want to thank you and the incredible board and staff. Actually, one of the things I always talk about is how it's an incredible opportunity to being able to really leverage dollars in a way that couldn't be done. And looking at many counties around us, they don't have that support from their county boards, which means it's not there, and it shows in our water quality in our lakes and the projects there, and frankly, the inspiration about shoreland restoration. It shows in what we're able to do with nitrate reduction and farming practices, enhancing what our egg producers know they want to do. And so it would be great if there were even more resources available, but you appreciate too the prudence that you show, both effective and efficient. And there's just not enough dollars to go around. So I want to thank you for that. And I've gotten a chance to work with Stephanie, along with Tom, on the Mississippi River St. Cloud, the first phase, the planning phase, and she's amazing. I mean, we're really, I think, very lucky and blessed to have such incredible partners and staff to help us do our work better. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Persky.
Yeah, Dennis, I just want to echo that thanks as well. I'll tell you what, you know, having grown up here, I remember when the Sauk River and the Mississippi River were hideous. And as a kid, I can remember just seeing the pollution and the dismay I had of what the water quality was, and, you know, over the years, how that's improved. So thank you for those efforts. And then before you pull the plug, I am on that Sartell Mississippi Water Group, so any expertise you can send our way before you leave would be greatly appreciated.
All right, thanks.
And don't think we'll just let you leave. You do need to stay connected in one way or another.
Oh, I will.
We'll
I'll get
pull you
back to Spring Hill.
We'll pull you back in. Commissioner Notch.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. Again, thanks, Dennis, for all you've done. You know, your department, as well as losing a lot of knowledge, you know, you had Chuck leave, yourself, Mark LaFave, I believe was just done, what, end of February?
Correct. Yep.
So, yeah, so, you know, kudos to such a great staff, and I know Arlen was on Stearns Electric for, what is it, 18 years now? We'll be retiring off of there, and congratulations. And again, thanks for everything you've done, and hopefully the new chief will keep going.
I agree. Yeah, we're going to do the best to keep things moving in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you.
So
Mr. Chair?
remind us again of that date. The only downfall is I don't drink beer, but that's okay. What's that date again that you're going to have your,
May 29th, Thursday, milk and honey cider,
and what time?
after 3.
After 3?
I did hear Third Street Brewery was going to be helping out a little bit too. I don't know what
And
they're
Mr.
planning, but
You'll let us know.
I
Commissioner
forgot to
Clark.
say this, since, you know, we've got board members here, you could just say, no, you can't retire. I recognize it's a free country, but.
We'll let him go. He's looking forward to it.
I
Not that
know.
We will not
We're-
miss
we're-
him, but yeah,
Yes.
he has served us
I,
greatly.
absolutely, but that's how much we think of you.
oh, thank you so much.
You want to say a few words? Welcome to the board, and welcome to your board, and welcome to this board. And again, anything in that Spring Hill, Meyer Grove, Sauk Center area, I'm all for. So welcome to that board. If you want to say a few words, certainly you can do that.
Sure. Yeah, I would just like to say thank you. Yeah, this is an incredible opportunity. I recently graduated college, and you know, I was kind of brought into this board. I am the first woman, as it was included on the sign, but yeah, the first woman on the board in the 75-year history. So I am greatly honored for this opportunity, and just yeah, there you go. But I look forward to serving the county and doing the best job that I possibly can.
Good for you. Welcome.
Thank you.
The one impact you do have immediately is you make a lot of us feel old. So you've been successful in that. So you're welcome, and good for you. Anything else? Otherwise, thank you for the report, and let's keep in touch. And thank you again, Tom, for the cookies, and the board for your work. We'll see you on the 15th of April. Next item is Environmental Services, Shelley and Becky, and others.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Shelley Benson, Environmental Services Director. I have Becky Schlorf, the Ag and Water Resources Supervisor, and Angela Beckman, who works with our water planning. And they have some items for your review today.
Good
Welcome.
morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I'm Becky Schlorf, Ag and Water Resources Division Supervisor. I do have, yep, there we go. So I do have a report on the division this morning for you. So the Wetland Conservation Act is a program that we're mandated to do for Stearns County. However, there is one municipality, the city of Sartell, that does also have that delegation, or did take on that for their boundaries. So with the Wetland Conservation Act, we do look at determinations, helping landowners determine where the wetland is roughly so they can stay away from and not impact wetlands. The staff also review consultant work of delineating the actual wetland boundary, and then the staff will approve those. We also do exemptions per the state rule, replacement plans when there is an allowed impact and credits are purchased. We also approve the banking plans when wetland credits are created, and we also investigate violations. With wetlands, as most of you probably know, the rule does require to avoid, minimize, and then mitigate or replace. And so, yeah, on that slide, though, we did have an average of 920 contacts with landowners per year. Last year was a little bit lower than that, but on average, that's where we're at. For wetland violations in 2024, we had 3 violations, 3 informal resolutions. What this is not showing are the number of complaints, and staff have to investigate all of those complaints. And so we did have 24 investigations, and so as you can see, not all of them are valid. With the replacement plans in 2024, we had only one, and we had 0 new banking applications come in. However, we do have 6 in progress. Those banking applications to create wetland and credits do take a number of years. Also, I can update you, in the past, I think last year I informed you that the banking credits are going for $2.50 per square foot. It has dropped down to what we're seeing right now is about $2. And then about 10 years ago or so, it was 96 cents. So it's gone up quite a bit, but yet it did come back down as credits have become more available in the bank service area.
Becky, help me do the math. What's that per acre?
Somebody
can figure that out,
To you later.
Yeah.
I'm not
Square
that fast
foot
and
in
good
a
at
field
that.
doesn't mean nothing to me, but by the acre.
So it was quite spendy,
By
but
208 is a total, I believe.
Commissioner Knott just figuring it out.
Maybe 84,000.
so for the feedlot program, the number of feedlots that we have in Stearns County has gone up a little bit over the years, as you can see from the column in yellow. Most of our feedlots, the vast majority of them are 50 to 299 animal units outside of shoreland. We do receive funding for those through our delegation from the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. But the numbers are increasing mostly in the feedlots that are smaller in size, that are not required to register by the state and that we're not funded for. Those dashed lines on the right side here are showing those are increasing over the years. So this trend is continuing, and then the decline is happening in the majority bracket in the mid-size farms.
And Becky, do you see a different variety of animal, the animals themselves, like sheep, chickens? Is that changing, or is it horses, cows?
Yeah, I would say, Mr. Chair, that what we're seeing is that basically these hobby farm size facilities are increasing, so then you do see a more wide variety of animal types. And then also the increase, less steep though, are the 300 animal units or more. And so those tend to be the larger barns with more one animal type on site. So, but yes, we have a wide variety of animal types that remain in Stearns County. We're not
Still
seeing
no
that change.
elephants yet?
No elephants.
Whenever we did the animal units in the planning, they say 50 chickens or 1 cow, and I'd say how many elephants, so that's why I asked that. We still don't have elephants yet.
No,
Mr. Chair, we have struggled with that at the Hemker Zoo.
Yeah,
Yes,
I don't think they have elephants though.
They have a rhinoceros.
yeah.
Yeah, yep, and a
Okay.
giraffe, and yeah.
A little bit of levity doesn't hurt, so
Right.
that's what I'm trying to do.
Yep. So we have the county and state feedlot permits that we issue. So we usually issue a joint permit when the state requires a permit as well. Otherwise, we're just issuing a county permit for county ordinance. But these are combined here. We had 69 permits, and over the years, that's a little bit lower. The average is 73 from these 5 years. We did have 5 variances in 2024, of which 2 were denied, and then we had 3 CUPs, conditional use permits.
And the 2 that were denied, first, does the state and the county, when you do their separate processes, but are they done in unison?
Correct.
So somebody doesn't have to go through a whole rigmarole with the state, whole rigmarole with the county?
Correct.
And then the 2 that were denied, I'm just curious, big picture, why?
I do not have that readily available. I'm
You
sorry,
can
I'll have to get that
back
for
to
you
us,
later.
maybe? I'd be
Yes.
curious.
Yep. So, there we go. The days to issue a permit, on average, we were 22 business days to issue our permits. We had 69 permits in 2024. And this is because they end up being incomplete for various reasons. The manure management plan isn't turned in, the engineering isn't done, the record keeping, the fee. So those are the reasons why we tend to not be able to turn it over quite as quickly as other permits. For feedlot compliance, non-compliance rather, this is showing the non-compliance for open lot runoff and liquid manure storage area. So for 2024, the numbers are pretty much the same the last several years. And you can see here in the chart that most of our non-compliance is in that 100 to 299 animal unit, the purple, and that has been declining or improving over the years. And then the 10 to 49 animal units and the less than 10 animal units, again, those hobby farms, are seeing a little bit of a bump over the years. Again, we're not we still oversee those for compliance for the state rule. We're just not actually reimbursed or paid for by the state.
Do you think maybe that's because they're unaware of it, or?
Right now, the state rule does not require those sites to register. We do, as have an ordinance here that does require registration, and of course, permitting for the ordinance. So we are aware of them, but that may be the case. That's how the rule was originally structured. And as will be presented here too, the Minnesota State Pollution Control Agency is looking at opening up the rule. So potentially, I suppose that could change. But
So when you register them, do you like give them a fact sheet of, these are the things you need to comply with? Or I'm looking at, I'm guessing that especially the smaller ones aren't as empowered. Ignorance of the law is no excuse. I get that. But on the same token, they may not totally be aware. They think, well, we got 5 horses. I'm not going to have to worry about this. That could be part of it. Or are they being informed somehow?
yeah, Mr. Chair, we do have to permit them to meet the setbacks for the ordinance and the use, the zoning. And so when they do require a new permit and get a hold of us, so initially when we're permitting a site, we're not permitting it to pollute. So if we're asked back out because they're going to be doing an alteration or something, that would be the time when we tend to find an issue. And so then they're being made aware of what corrections can be made to resolve the issue.
And I guess the new norm that I'm trying to work with Shelley on is that we don't react to situations, that we be proactive and we stop them from happening. So the more information you can give them ahead of time before it's a violation, I think would be more friendly. Again, a fact sheet when you do it saying, you can't do this, you can do this. If you do this, you have to do that. Do you understand kind of?
Correct. Yeah, Mr. Chair, I know I can think of a site right now that staff is working with where, they're running a model to make sure that it will be compliant when we permit the new construction. And so that owner is being informed that this amount of buffer is needed to maintain compliance once you construct. And so that is being discussed in those situations. But a fact sheet is not something we currently have, but we could look into. Yeah.
I would encourage you to do that because again, the other thing that happens is oftentimes it's a second generation. The first generation kind of got by with some things or were doing, well, then the second generation, again, ignorance of the law is no excuse, but they just keep doing what was being done, maybe even more. And again, rather than someone coming in saying you're in violation, to be proactive with that. I would encourage you to do that. Commissioner Clark.
Yeah, I really appreciate, I do think you're often proactive, and I think I see a lot of education being done, whether it's by environmental service or others, and anything that can keep being done to help it be clearer, as Commissioner Bertram is saying, is helpful to people the more that they're seeing it. It's kind of like when township supervisors weren't opening their emails, and the question was, did they get information? It's a two-sided thing. If we're getting the information and people don't look at it, it's one thing, but anything we could be doing, especially on our website too, so that you can point to something easily, if in case they're, kind of busy, and that's helpful, so thank you.
Yeah, and Mr. Chair, I could even add to that. I don't have a slide on this, but we do also track how many after-the-fact permits we issue. That was up in 2024. It varies throughout the years. Sometimes it's low, but there are people also that do construction without our permit or contacting us to begin with. And we've had zoning for over 20 years, and so that's still a struggle that we see. They just add a lean-to or add a barn because it's convenient and don't think to call and talk to us about it. So.
And the other part of that, at least what I hear, is that the biggest thing is people, if they want to do something, they're concerned that if they let us know, it's going to get complicated. And then they just think, okay, well, it's not that big of a deal, maybe. So again, the less complicated we can make, I always advise people, I wouldn't do that. I mean, I'd contact them. If they aren't cooperative or whatever, let me know, let me help them cooperate. But the more we can show people that we are going to work with you and that we are going to be proactive, and you're not going to, suddenly have to stop doing something that you've been doing, we'll just, get you permitted correctly or whatever, the better off we are. And I know this, I'm going to keep pounding that drum. I know that I'm not criticizing, I'm trying to be proactive. But we do need to change that. Because again, there is a strong feeling in my district that they'd rather not contact the department, not just for feedlot, but, and again, the more we can show them that we're there to help them and not hurt them, the better off we're gonna be. Because we'll have compliance, we'll have a happier resident. So, and again, forgive me, I'm gonna keep saying that.
So manure record keeping is another non-compliance area that we oversee with working with the state feedlot rule. So in Stearns County, we have 840 feedlots. 61% of our feedlots are required to keep manure records, what they do with the manure. So field location, acres applied, et cetera. We have 546 feedlots that we've actually gone out and reviewed those records for. So 65% of those required to keep the records. And of those, 223 are non-compliant for their record keeping, so 41%. This is pretty much on average for the last 6 years, but it is something we're continuing to try to do one-on-one education with.
If you want to know what people do with their manure in the last week, I can tell you in a lot of places.
Yes.
They're land applying it.
It is that time of year, correct. So our staff, we have 3 full-time feedlot staff on board, and so they have been very active in our Minnesota Association of County Feedlot Offers, as well as the Association of Minnesota Counties. So we were on the board and in special teams and meetings and such, so which is very helpful because Stearns County has the most feedlots of any in the state. So we also did receive for the biennium an increase, a significant increase that we do not expect to be continued in the next biennium, but it is on the AMC platform. And then the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency is coming out online with a new tool, the nutrient management tool. They are requiring it for all their large feedlots to use that tool for their manure planning and record keeping. So all of the sites that we oversee and have jurisdiction with are allowed to use it. It's not required at this time. And then also, like I mentioned, the MPCA, although they did hold some stakeholder meetings in 2024 to just pull in the producers, interest groups, and the counties to decide or process of how they want to go about or might go about including people's opinions and input on the rule change that they're looking at. And so that rule change is expected to begin. In fact, I think the notice just went out or will be going out for input. I think it's a 60-day opening input or comment period, and expect that that rule change process will take a couple of years. The other thing I can let you know too with feedlots, as far as Stearns County's ordinance goes, we'll be coming forward with a couple small changes, so that'll be going to Planning Commission here shortly. So as far as the feedlot program goes, that is my update on that. And then if you don't have any questions on that, I'll turn over the rest of the presentation to Angela Beckman.
The last feedlot question I'd have is, so you referenced that in one area you're more restrictive than the state. How many, the state ordinance and the county ordinance, are there other provisions that we're more restrictive than the state?
Mr. Chair, yes, the state rule does not address setbacks. So every county has, the land use setbacks. So setbacks to residential dwellings or property lines and that kind of thing. So in that way, we're more restrictive in that way. Stearns County first had a feedlot ordinance in 1998 and then zoning in the year 2000. And so when that ordinance was first developed for Stearns County, it was quite restrictive for a number of years. That was the time of hog confinement barns and a lot of new stuff and concerns with animal agriculture. And so over the years, our ordinance has consistently been decreased in its restrictiveness, from allowing more chickens on smaller properties to doing away with the triggers for a conditional use permit, to all sorts of things. And so that's also the direction we're looking at moving with our upcoming ordinance changes and animal unit density change in agricultural.
Could you kind of highlight that on what we're more restrictive on than the state, and then what provisions that we have laxed our enforcement on? There was one ordinance, as I'm reviewing these ordinances, there was one ordinance I saw that was amended 9 times. And so it really gets convoluted of how the ordinance started and then how it evolves over. And again, it's not a criticism, it's a reality. So when you have 9, 10 amendments to an ordinance, at least for me, I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer, it gets confusing because you push one area in, it pops out in another area. So as I'm trying to get my arms around that, if you could, one, just provide what we're more restrictive on with the land use, with the permitting, feedlot permitting, and then what has evolved where it's gotten more restrictive and where it's gotten less restrictive. That would be helpful, I think,
Okay.
for all of us.
All right, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Notch.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Becky. Yeah, I know at the last area advisory, you guys gave a presentation on some of these things too. And I remember back in the day being on the township when zoning came, I know one of the issues then was the sights, sounds, smells of agriculture. And part of the restrictions were to prevent residential dwellings getting too close to the feedlots and let the farmers farm because, that's the rural part of the county. So, and I would assume making 9 ordinance changes over almost 30 years, I would guess we have other ordinances that have kind of morphed in that time frame as things change.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Notch, we have 439, which is our zoning ordinance, and there are significant numbers of changes that occur. And typically we do an annual review as variations occur, Board of Adjustment changes. So there are many changes to 439 that occur. The subdivision ordinance as well. We periodically review that and make sure that we're keeping up to date. But as Commissioner Bertram expressed, it's part of the responsibility that we put that information out to the public so they're aware of what's changing and is it more restrictive, less restrictive. And we do anticipate that things will continue to change because that's what good ordinances do. They change over time. The question becomes the format in which we do that. And that's a different process that I will talk to you about on a different day. But I think there's some opportunities there to look at different ways of managing it so it's more publicly visual for everyone. We will want to make sure we're transparent in those changes.
And I think to that point, it's also why are we making the change? When we were down at the legislative conference, Senator Johnson asked the group, how many of you wanted this bill, a particular bill he was talking about? One hand went up. He said, elected officials, we're normally not used to looking for problems. We're looking to solve problems. And so a lot of these ordinance changes, and again, this isn't critical, but this is real, came not necessarily from the public saying, we'd like to have this change. And what Commissioner Notch says is relevant. I was looking more from the farm standpoint, feedlot standpoint. The residential close to a feedlot, that makes sense. And that change helps the new homeowner and it helps the farmer. And the sight, sounds, and smells of farming, I was on the planning commission when I pushed that to be added to the abstract. Now nobody reads abstracts anymore. I don't know how effective it is anymore. But again, I saw more than one instance on the planning commission where somebody wanted to build a house and they had no idea that there was a farmer on the other side of the hill. And then they complained about it. So yes, and our role in planning was to prevent issues, land use issues, and it still should be that. And that's not just feedlots anymore. Now it's morphed into other issues, but certainly with feedlots, we want to let the farmer farm, and we certainly want the resident to be able to live in the country, but we need to be proactive with that, I think. Commissioner Clark.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think another important piece of this is if Commissioner Lensmeyer was able to be with us, he would be reminding us that part of changing ordinances is to progress, is to get a chance to see what the unintended consequences might have been, which I know you and I could both appreciate, having been in the legislature. There's lots of unintended consequences. And then how do we improve on it? And so part of the review ends up being very proactive. It can also be that measure of what has or hasn't worked. Let's face it, too, the amount of regulation that comes from the state and others is significant. And I keep thinking about what continue to be the way is to help people see what can be or how we are trying to utilize our website or others to help make their process, as was previously mentioned, a little bit easier to find. Our broadband efforts will help with that because right now it's almost impossible for some to do some of the work they need to do. And then let's face it, part of it was part of our comp plan update. And it's hard to sit here, Commissioner Persky, and not think about some of the conversations we had a few years ago about how many more cows we're getting at, and what did that mean about feedlots, and then the folks who might be in an orderly annexation area who are upset. So, you know, this is for the public, not for us in this room necessarily, but, you know, we have many variables to look at. And if you do end up doing some kind of chart, which I think we probably had from before when we did the comp plan update, so it'd be good to remind us, is there's a number of places where the state is silent and then counties do it, right? It's not that we're more or less restrictive, it's that it's been, I guess, voluntold to us.
The 840 feedlots, how much decrease is that over the last 5, 10 years?
Mr. Chair, the 840 feedlots that are required to keep the records?
Correct.
I think since last year, or in the last couple of years, maybe about 10-ish or so decrease.
But it's definitely going down.
Yeah.
It is, yeah.
Okay,
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Persky.
but Becky, the animal units continue to increase, is that not true?
So let me, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Persky, let me just clarify. The record keeping the state requires starts at 100 animal units or more. So as I said, you know, the 100 animal units to 299 animal units, we're seeing a steady decline in the number of those. And we're seeing a gradual increase in the number of sites that are 300 animal units or more. So I think overall, that's why we're seeing a decrease in the number of sites in Stearns County that are required to keep the records at this time. When the state rule is opened up, that may change. So.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Persky.
But you know, as far as, you know, the dairy industry here in Stearns County, we've got maybe the fewest farms that we've had over the decades, but yet we have more cows than we've ever had at any time. Is that not correct?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Persky, I know the number of dairy sites in Stearns County has continued to decline significantly over the decades. As far as what I've heard in general, anecdotally, is the number of cows is about the same, maybe a slight increase, but that is not declining, correct?
Commissioner Notch?
Yeah, and I think part of that too is most of the creameries in our area are full. So it's been a limiting factor now on increasing size. If somebody quits, you know, those pounds of milk get picked up usually by somebody else. So it's kind of becoming a local issue as far as the availability of space for the milk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Good morning, Commissioners. I just have a high level.
Just state your name.
Oh, yes. Angela Beckman, Stearns County Environmental Services.
Thank you.
Yes. So just a high-level overview for both water planning and the AIS program. For the water planning, one Watershed, one plan. We have 4 watersheds within Stearns County. The North Fork of the Crow River watershed is under the implementation phase. They have projects being completed at this time, and they did have the performance review and assistance program done in 2024, which is a 5-year plan evaluation that is completed by the state. The Sauk River watershed is also in the implementation phase. They have projects being submitted and completed at this time, and Stearns County does serve as the fiscal agent for the Sauk River watershed. For the Mississippi River St. Cloud watershed, the planning phase has been completed and the plan has been adopted. The joint powers entity was formed just recently, and they will be moving forward to begin the implementation phase, which is exciting. And for the Mississippi River Sartell watershed, the planning phase just began here in 2025. The first policy committee meeting was just held in February of 2025, so they are just getting off the ground for the Sartell.
We've identified Sauk River watershed that we're the fiscal agent. It isn't identified in the other 3. Who are those fiscal agents?
Mr. Chair, I can answer that. I don't know if Angela has that background yet. She's still learning. So the North Fork Crow River watershed is, oh shoot, who is that? It's one of our other partners. It's an SWCD that is handling that.
Is it all counties?
It's counties and, no. So as far as fiscal agent goes, it's primarily soil and water conservation districts. So our other partners. Yeah.
So when you say Stearns County serves as a fiscal agent, the soil and water or us?
No, Mr. Chair, it's you as a
Us.
board are serving with the staff's help as the fiscal agent. So that's why you're seeing me more often bring things to you for approval, because that is a collaborative. It is not a joint powers entity. And so those things do have to be approved by you as fiscal agent.
And then as far as the other three, if you can identify either now or sometime
Yep.
who those fiscal agents are, and then how and who decides who's the fiscal agent, because again, as I'm learning, Stearns County tends to always be the one that, kind of volunteers to say, we can take care of this, we can take care of that, not just in Watershed, this is, a bigger, in the back of my head. So we don't always need to be first. We can let some of the other counties, and again, this is this issue, but I'm talking about other issues that are not directly related, but as I'm trying to learn, that would be helpful for me, identifying who the other fiscal agents are, and then I don't know how we work through that process when we decide that we are gonna be a fiscal agent. I would assume Randy's involved with that, and Mike, because again, we don't wanna be the hero to everybody, probably.
We're not.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Knapp?
the reason we are the fiscal agent is because the collaborative request, normally the Watershed would have been, but the collaborative group requested they wanted a separation. So they agreed that Stearns County should be the fiscal agent because we had the largest area in the Sauk River watershed. So that's basically why Stearns County is the fiscal agent, because it was a request by the collaborative to have someone other than the watershed. And I think is on North Fork, Meeker Soil and Water.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner
I
Knott.
can't remember when.
I know it's switched over the years, so
Yeah.
it doesn't quite sound right. I feel like it's right. I think it's right. I think it's right
Well,
county.
you'll find that out. and
Yeah,
then
I can get
identify
that to all of you, Kurt.
Yep.
Yeah.
And again, that makes sense, but let's not be the first one to raise their hand right away and say, yep, we're gonna do it. And I don't know that it's not Commissioner Clark, but go ahead.
Yeah, no, what I was going to say is I understand that you might have that perception, but that is actually not the case. I would say staff has been very helpful in a number of joint powers saying, no, we're not going to be doing X, Y, or Z. And part of it ends up, I know that in the planning phase, came through our policy committee to approve that. It will be we know that it's switched now and it will be somebody else, but it was never going to be more than this one. And in a number of other places, we are not. So you might be thinking there's a perception. We have hundreds and hundreds of JPEs, and we are definitely not the fiscal agent for many.
And again, Commissioner Clark, thank you for that, but I don't know that. I don't not believe you, but in this case, that's why I'd like you to identify that. But two comes to mind, two things. The airport, we agree to do the emergency services. It's in Sherburne County. Why doesn't Sherburne County do it? Why doesn't Benton County do it? Stearns is in charge of the emergency services plan. Career Solutions, Randy and I are talking about something, and Joe, I'll share that with you. We did the payroll. We always kind of, again, so there are more than one example, again, not related
Absolutely.
directly to this, that I think it's just been, like I said, the hand kind of went up quickly and said, here, we'll do it. Well, we don't need to be the savior to the world. So again, not just Watershed, but as long as we're talking about this, just do the four, who the fiscal agents are. And then, of course, the other thing is, with any taxing authority, I'm obviously very sensitive. The watershed districts have done a good job, but they're independent. They're a taxing authority, as the airport is, and we're dealing with that. So we just want to make sure that we've got a grip on who the fiscal agents are, what the taxing authority is, and that we kind of maintain some control over that as a board. So,
And
Commissioner Clark.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, the good news is we do. These have come to the board, and I think what's really important to know, and it sounds like you're just raising concerns and you've got questions, and staff will come and talk to you about those, because when we need to together. In this case, and I think in most cases, but in this case, the county is paid for to do that. I mean, it's very important that the public does not get the perception that we're just saying, hey, let's go ahead and volunteer our staff's time, because all of us want to be fiscally prudent with our bottom line. There are times because we are the largest entity in the region, that we have more capacity and or we have more expertise. There's often more expertise, and so that's part of it. But I want to make sure the public and you are aware that we are getting paid to do this service. So,
And if that's
good
accurate,
worries, good worries.
Include that too then, Becky, that what we are getting paid, and I assume, again, Randy's in on that it's justifying the cost of what it costs us to be the fiscal agent, that we're getting reimbursed that through the, I mean, we all want to be partners, but we don't need to do it for nothing.
Absolutely.
Nobody does nothing for nothing.
Right.
Yep. Thank you.
And then moving on to the Aquatic Invasive Species Program, just a quick recap of 2024. In 2024, there were 13,257 inspections done across 9 lake accesses and 8 water bodies. Most of those, approximately 60%, were upon entry to the water body rather than exit. And there was an average of 1.87 inspections per hour. 6 lakes were funded in 2024 for control activities that would fall under our assessment and management category. And not on this slide, but there were also 2 associations funded for education purposes as well. And we do have an active AIS committee. They are non-appointed.
And if I may just add to that too, because we did recently bring before you approval to sign a letter regarding the governor's budget with AIS. Just to let you know, so we received about we spent about $225,000 in 2024 for the program from those state dollars. And then the local contribution was an additional over $100,000. So the lake associations are contributing a significant amount of money towards inspections as well as their lake assessments.
All right, and then we can see a graph here. This shows the new aquatic invasive species listings over time in Stearns County. That's according to the DNR's infested waters list. In 2024, there was only 1 new infestation listed, and that is Knaus Lake. They were listed for Eurasian water milfoil. And this is a map showing where those infestations are located, and they are color-coded for the type of infestation. Just to visualize that.
And that's pretty much what we have for the division updates. If you have any questions before moving to the next agenda item.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so the next agenda item is for approval of the fiscal year 25 CRP incentives grant agreement, and to authorize, authorize the county auditor to sign the grant agreement on behalf of the county board. So this is $100,000 that the state has made available to incentivize owners to sign up for the Conservation Reserve Program, which is a federal program. And so this had been approved previously by the board, but it's just now that the state is getting us a grant agreement for your approval and signature. And I don't know, I think the farm program is holding things up right now. So the farm bill rather is kind of holding things up. So I don't know at what point we'll actually be able to start using or spending the funds and contracting with landowners, but at least if the grant agreement is signed and ready to go, and then we'll be ready.
How long has the county had the incentive?
So, Mr. Chair, this is the state, Bowser, the Board of Water and Soil Resources just began this new program in 2024. And so we're a part of that one for $30,000, again, for the Sauk River Watershed area, our collaborative. And then they did make available $100,000 for fiscal year 25. So this is a very new program, and for the $30,000 right now, we've got maybe a quarter of that spent and contracted. And so, again, that's about getting, the Soil and Water Conservation District will be the ones getting the word out. And
So 2024, we did get some money and expend some money.
$30,000 was allotted to the collaborative. It's a reimbursement program. So once the Soil and Water District issues their incentive, then they ask us for reimbursement and we ask the state for reimbursement.
So the soil and water does an incentive beyond the federal
Correct.
FSA program?
Correct.
Because CRP rates, as we all know, have gone down. Well, I shouldn't say they've gone down. They haven't kept up with what land rent is. So a lot of CRP
Yep.
has been pulled out because they weren't even close.
Yes.
So how does the soil and water, or is that a Dennis question, decide who and how much those incentives are? You know, like, let's just say CRP is $100. So they say, well, we'll give you $110. Well, that's not going to cut it, probably. That farmer's still going to rent out the land before they enroll it in CRP.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, packet page 200 shows the work plan that was approved by the collaborative, the policy committee, which Commissioner Notch is a member of. And so what they approved was $100 per acre on a first come, first serve, up to a maximum of $3,000 for anywhere within the watershed. If it's within one of the targeted areas, then they can get $500 per acre, again, first come, first serve, up to a maximum payout of $15,000 per contract.
So that's
that was-
above and beyond the
Correct.
FSA. Well, now you're
Well,
talking.
this is like buffer, riparian, right, stuff like that. Not so much just general acreage
Correct.
CRP. This is strictly basically water-based type
Right.
funding.
I
If
thought
you're
I
not
had-
spending the money, though, should you potentially go beyond the water, you know, and then maybe do it at a lower level? Because CRP overall benefits butterflies and everything else. So even if it isn't water-based, if you're not spending the money, I could see where you'd have the priority to do it water-based. But if you're not getting enough requests for that, would it be helpful then to spill it over into normal CRP incentives? Maybe not as high, but something.
Mr. Chair, the state allowed it only for the CCRP enrollment and re-enrollment. So it's, they have set standards, but if the money is not being spent, as you suggest, the collaborative can ask for a work plan change and a change in the amounts or even the scope to adjust that and try to spend those dollars. And then the state would approve that, and then we could go forward with a change.
And it's new, so.
Commissioner Nod.
It's new, so they're working through the schematics of getting people on board, getting the word out there that this money's available.
Well, it's
So
the first that I've heard of it, so that's important to get the word out, because but what I've heard from producers is it's not even close to what I can get for rent. I'm not gonna leave it in the program,
Yeah.
but this certainly could change that.
Yeah.
but this is the
Commissioner
WBIF,
Nod.
that WBIF, that was at 30,000, right?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Notch, this is completely separate from
that
the
one.
WBIF, so that larger implementation funding of over $1 million is something entirely separate, and this is I don't even know where I think it's from a legislative, I'm not even sure whereabouts.
Because didn't we
which pot of money
approve a
they got.
$30,000 WBIF last year for the
It was
Sauk River?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Notch, it was $30,000 for this CRP incentive. Yes, that was approved. And that has been, like I was mentioning earlier, there's 3 or 4 contracts that have been reimbursed on that.
Yep.
So there's another program,
The pilot to this was $30,000 for fiscal year
but this
'24.
whatever you're referencing.
The watershed-based implementation funding is the primary source of money for those One Watershed, One plans that get approved, and that's on a biennial basis. And so the Sauk River Watershed Collaborative is on their second pot of money from the WBIF. And so we're fiscal agents for that collaborative and managing that money for the collaborative. And primarily that work is done by the Soil and Water Conservation District.
I'm just smiling because there's another fiscal agent, not that I'm complaining. So
It's the
that
same.
that is,
Same
oh, it's the same.
It's the same.
Is it above and beyond then? So there's 3 tiers of this. It's FSA, normal CRP funding, now this incentive program that's new, and this WPIF or whatever you reference. So there's kind of 3 sources? Or am I
Mr.
misunderstanding that? I'm sorry.
Mr. Chair, for the collaborative, Stearns County is acting as the fiscal agent. So any program or project that collaborative decides to participate in, or grant or project, the collaborative policy committee approves it, you approve it as a fiscal agent, and then have to sign the grant agreements and such. So we've had two allotments or grant agreements for watershed-based implementation funding. And we've had one for the pilot CRP, and this is the fourth for the $100,000 for the CRP incentive. So we're managing four grant agreements for the collaborative at this time.
Thank goodness for staff people like you to keep track of that, because I'm lost, but I trust you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what you're looking for is a motion to approve the fiscal year 25 CRP incentive grant agreement with the Sauk River Watershed Collaboration.
Mr. Chair, and authorize county auditor to sign it. It's a digital document, and it's a little bit easier for the auditor to sign those.
Got it. So can we get a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Notch
Second.
moves it. Commissioner Persky seconds it. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is approved.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, Becky, before you leave, just an issue I've got or something I've noticed, and maybe you can give us a little bit of insight on this. I was in Fleet Farm the other day, and they happen to have their sale on chicks, and we know the price of eggs. And so I was just about in every aisle, and so many carts were full of chicks that were broadcasting their peep, peep, peep all around the store. But my question is, with the price of eggs and the regulations that we have, the ordinance, whatever, in the townships, can people have their own chicks? What's the status of people being able to do that?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Persky, so our ordinance does allow parcels in certain zoning districts to have chickens, no roosters, and so they are required to just get a permit if it's a non-portable structure or over 433 square feet. And then we make sure it's meeting setbacks and such, but it is allowed in a number of areas. Off the top of my head, I don't have the ordinance memorized, but there are some districts like urban expansion where it's more limited, and R5, R1 is more limited, but it is allowed.
Yeah, I know at residential.
Commissioner Persky?
Yeah, I know municipalities oftentimes can either allow or restrict, but then just even a small number, is there a small number that you can have without a permit?
If they're housed in a structure that is portable and under 433 square feet,
Okay.
yep, then they would not need a permit from the county.
I'm hearing that a lot of people that have chickens are bringing them into the house at this point with a $12 a dozen. Randy might be able to shed some light on that, but yeah, the people are definitely starting to want chickens. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Next up is Jody, who always is so patient and is always at the end of the agenda. I'm going to change that one meeting just to catch you off guard, Jody. Welcome.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jody Tyke, County Engineer. My first item, H1, is found on 201 of your agenda packets. So today with this item, I'm asking the board to adopt a resolution to transfer excess municipal state aid construction funding to our regular state aid construction account. And just a really quick background, municipal state aid funds that we get, and this is our portion of the gas tax, motor vehicle sales tax, a portion of the sales tax on auto parts, et cetera. State aid is divided into municipal and regular. Municipal state aid can only be spent in cities under 5,000, and regular state aid can be spent anywhere. And so by resolution, according to statute, the county board can transfer what's considered excess from their municipal account into their regular account. And in this case, excess is anything over 2 years allocation. Just to ease your minds that we're not taking money away from the small cities, in the last 5 years, we've spent, I want to say, approximately $2 million of regular state aid construction in cities under 5,000. There was a project in Rockville and in New Munich, and we just spent the regular state aid construction funds because of the municipal construction projects we had going on at the time. So this resolution would transfer $1,186,952.51 into that regular account so that it can be spent anywhere on our system. But we would still have over $3 million left in our municipal state aid construction account for those future projects in cities under 5,000.
And you and I have talked about, I shared with you and we had a discussion about, to me, again, I have no problem with this, but budgeting, the best budget is to follow a budget. I mean, when a family doesn't follow their budget, you're talking $5,000 a month or something, well, that's one thing. But when you're talking the amount of money that we do, when you start moving money around and between funds and two, I just get concerned that one, it's not really solid budgeting because that's what the budget's there for. And then two, the concern that you and I talked about that you addressed, that it doesn't get diverted away from the smaller communities that really, really need this into bigger road projects. And you assured me of that, and I get that. So, but yeah, we don't want to lose it. In the same token, we don't want to overcomplicate the funding, I don't think.
And
So-
Mr. Chair, if I could just add a comment onto that as well. So the last few years, we have advanced some of our state aid allocation to keep our construction program going. And when the road program is put together, we make some assumption that we're going to do that. It's basically an interest-free loan from our future allocations. And Commissioner Bertram and I did discuss that this year as we develop our road program, we can show you two examples. One that includes continuing but easing back on the amount that we are advancing, and one that stops advancing those state aid construction funds, just so you can see that difference and make that determination. And I should have probably been much more forthcoming with the budget committee last year. We know we can do this, and so there was some assumption based on the road program that was approved that we were going to do this, and then we can therefore advance that much less regular state aid from future allocations this year.
Stearns County certainly has done a great job in prioritizing roads, bridges, culverts, which are bridges, and remind us, what are we spending 2025 on road projects?
We are right around 4 million, but at the March 25th meeting, I will be giving an all-inclusive update on the 2025 road program.
Which again, people, when they hear what the investment is, and of course realize how big we are, there's a lot of nice roads out there. There's certainly some roads that need, but you drive in Calumet County, Meeker County, I'll tell you, you know right away if you're in a different county. The roads aren't half, to your credit, half the level that ours are, and that costs money. So Commissioner Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I really appreciate, I mean, to me, in a way, this is part of the budgeting process because we do it every year, and you've been talking about that. In a way, if we want to equivalent it to the family budget, I mean, my family has money we put aside for maintenance and or travel, and there's occasions where we use some of those funds and then put it back for something else we might need to do. So it's kind of like that. And I also, just again, for the public, just want to reaffirm how in some ways complicated our projects are, because we have an array of people living in different places. We have people from the more dense part paying for roads they're probably never going to drive on. And yet that's really important because we need the goods and services. We need to have the county as a whole working, and we need those roads and those bridges and those culverts to be good. And so I know I talk to my constituents often about how important it is that our investments and the ways that our economy and our vitality are is because we have strategically, because you and your department have just strategically helped us with that. And yet sometimes we have some pretty big projects that also have to get done and sop up some money. But I just want to thank you for that.
Okay, so you're looking for a motion to adopt the resolution to
So
transfer
moved.
Second.
excess municipal state aid construction funding to regular state aid construction account. Commissioner Clark?
Yep, I moved it.
No, I know. I was going to think of something funny to say, and I can't right now.
You keep working
Moved
on
it
it.
ahead of time,
Work
and then
on it.
Commissioner Notch seconded it ahead of time, so we're way ahead of the game. Seeing no discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion passes. Item H2.
So my next item, H2, is found on page 203 of your agenda packets, and I need to apologize because I just noticed this morning that what was submitted for this agenda item, you did not get the previous action or the summary background, at least not in what I printed off from the website this morning. So I'm going to give you a much more lengthy description. You may recall that at your December 17th meeting, I asked the board to authorize us to approve a reservation agreement for the purchase of 1.6 acres of wetland mitigation. It wasn't well received, but it was noted that it was necessary at the time. Since then, we have gone through further iterations of our permit process with the Army Corps of Engineers. And again, this is something that is a little bit new to us. It's a new stance that the Board of Water and Soil Resources has taken about stormwater treatment and the impacts that it may have to wetlands. So Bowser, the Board of Water and Soil Resources, has said that they will not use the local road mitigation bank for those stormwater treatment ponds, even if they are necessary only because of the safety improvements. However, Bowser says, we only make you mitigate fill in those wetland areas. So basically the berm that keeps the water in this wet stormwater treatment pond. The Corps of Engineers at the federal level, however, says even where you're excavating and it's still going to be wetland, you need to mitigate that as well. So we needed to find some additional acreage. And I, after hearing the last presentation, need to talk to Becky because we are at about $90,000 an acre for wetland mitigation, at least the types that we're impacting here. So the previous agreement was for a total cost of $155,053.92. We needed to purchase an additional 1.88 acres because of 0.94 acres of impact where we're excavating in a wetland. The new purchase agreement cost is $328,566.64. As a side note, yes, I know this is real money. This is not impacting our state aid. This is going to impact our sales tax, local option sales tax revenues, because that's what is paying for this project. This is new uncharted territory for us because we've never had to pay for mitigation for stormwater treatment in the past. So I apologize that this is coming back to you, and I apologize even more that we are nearly $330,000 for wetland mitigation credits at this point.
Unfortunately, you can't apologize for the federal or state government, but thank you for at least attempting to do it on our level. But, and again, it's something that the public, I don't blame them for not understanding these obligations, and just, you can't just do a road. I mean, I heard a lot about the monarch butterfly and the bats. I continue to. And again, it just shows how these things just kind of keep getting piled on. Getting back to my point to Dennis, you make the projects so expensive that you can't do as many projects. It's counterproductive. When I say you, not you, government. And of course, we're a victim of that with no funding. They're not increasing the funding to cover their obligation. And again, what do we do about that? I don't know. I mean, we go to Washington, we go to St. Paul. I don't know what we do about it, but Commissioner Notch?
I just think this is just a shame to begin with. That you have a public road project and you're going to have to purchase these credits. And part of our main function is, roads and, public safety. And here we have to spend $328,000 of taxpayer money to buy these credits. It just seems so counterproductive.
And it's a 2-to-1 mitigation, right?
Correct.
Yep, 2-to-1 mitigation, again, for the public means, normally it would be an acre. You take an acre of wetland out, you got to restore it with a 1 acre. In these projects, you take 1 acre out, you have to replace it with 2 acres.
And Mr. Chair, state and at the federal level, most wetlands, but at the state level, definitely, all wetland impacts that are beyond that de minimis amount need to be replaced at 2-to-1. There is legislation being introduced that wetlands could be replaced at a 1-to-1 ratio. Legislation's being introduced at the state level. That would be great. However, we would still need to address it at the federal level, and I believe the commissioners who were in DC recently have started some of those discussions. So it's something that we're certainly encouraging that it be looked at. It's out of our control, but we can certainly provide the support for that to help that legislation move forward where it needs to. I'm cautiously optimistic.
Senator Lang asked on the Highway 23 segment between Wilmer and St. Cloud of items that drove up the costs of the project. And the last that I saw, we did this as part of the Highway 23 Coalition, there was 38 items that drove up the cost of that project that anyone could argue what's the value of that. I mean, blatant environmental violations, of course not. I mean, we're gonna, go through wetlands and all that stuff appropriately, but, and again, instead of being able to build a road between Wilmer and St. Cloud with 105 million, had that cost been less, we could do more roads with the same amount of money, but it just keeps getting worse and worse. Commissioner Persky.
Yeah, Commissioner Clark and myself, we were in DC this past week, and we're, presenting to the delegation about maybe making some of those changes. And as Jody had mentioned, there's a bill that we're introducing at the state level, hopefully to get passed to make those changes. But yeah, but by all means, and we're clean water advocates here, no question about it. We want to protect the water. We've done a good job of improving things. But again, the cost that we're adding to these transportation projects, it's ridiculous, because we're also talking about some of these wetlands that are just cattails that are in a ditch or an isolated piece of property that has very little environmental impact, whereas with the bank, we can create more quality wetlands that actually maybe support more quality habitat. And a 1-to-1 ratio, at least again, we're not losing wetland, but at the cost of $87,000 per acre is just, it puts a considerable burden on these projects.
Commissioner Notch?
I had this conversation too for the last number of years. Why, I never understand why Bowser or the state wouldn't look at, you take in Zion Township a couple years ago, they purchased that 160 acres, converted the whole thing into wetland. Here you've created a bank, but you can't credit, you'd think the state could recoup some funding by saying, oh, okay, we're out of bank credits here. We just created this 160 acre wetland, dug, ditches. It's like, well, here, let's sell credits and get the money back. I mean, we have a lot of, the park by Cold Spring, what was that? Almost 300 acres? Most of it was, half of it was a farm field. Well, now it's going to be a park, so it's not going to get farmed anymore. So I don't know. Realistically, there's a lot of land that's been taken out of production or what it used to be, and has been purchased by Pheasants Forever or wildlife management areas, which, in my opinion, here you have perfect places where you could mitigate wetlands at probably a more reasonable cost, maybe $1 a square foot instead of $2, but.
And the flip side of that is you take that production out of property taxes out of Zion Township, for example, small township, it's the smallest township in my district, lowest budget. Now, you're taking that right out of the property tax rolls, and so they can't tax for it. They are creating wetland, but, and of course, the further west you go, it happens all over the place. These rural townships in Belgrade and Bruton, more and more wetland. Everybody from St. Cloud wants to get in the Suburbans and drive out there to hunt, and those townships can't maintain the roads because the revenue is decreasing because this land keeps getting taken off the tax roll. So I'm going to get a headache if we keep talking about this stuff. So
Mr. Chair.
I think you're looking for a
Just
motion.
real quick, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Clark.
And yes, I know that Commissioner Lensmeyer is trying to get back on, but he would probably say the horse is dead. But my point actually is, Ms. Tyke, we clearly have learned from you about how to communicate about this issue. Higher quality wetlands, less cost, and being able to make projects and communities work. So with that, I will, do you want to read the thing first? Otherwise, I'll make the
We could do it
motion.
either way. You decide.
Okay, I will move that we approve the revised wetland credit reservation agreement for the rest. Do you want me to read the whole thing? Or-
Sure.
Okay, for 3.56 acres of wetland credits for CP 073-157-021 County Road 157 reconstruction between Freeport and Albany, and I didn't say that all in one sentence, sorry about that.
Perfect.
Or one breath,
We
I
got a
mean.
motion? Commissioner
Second.
Persky seconds it. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, pose same sign. Okay, approved. Thank you.
I did mention that at the March 25th board meeting, I will give a much more all-inclusive update on road construction. And County Road 157 has its share of environmental-related issues. And so we should have updates on a lot of those items by the 25th. And so it seems like that would be a better time to go through several of these
Are you
items.
going to bring the popcorn or should I? At least you got a clean detour. Using the 94 as a detour certainly is going to make it easy, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes.
All right.
Okay, thank you. Have a good day. Next, we have Chad and Jake, or Chad's not even going to come up. See, if you hire good people, you don't even have to get up anymore, Chad. Welcome, Jake and Mr. Lahr.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Jake Pitty, County Assessor. To my left, I have Randy Lahr, Assistant County Assessor. Hello. We are here to, well, we like to get out and market our assessment at this time of year. We just set our values here, and we like to come before the board and talk about it a little bit, answer any questions you might have, as well as we'll be on the radio tomorrow on Chasm in the morning, and we'll talk with Kirby for a while. And then we also will be out at the Noxious Weed meeting in April, both out west and at in Wright County, Wade Park, sorry. Otherwise, we can get started here. So 2025 property assessment update. As usual, property assessment work was completed, quintile inspections were done, market condition trends. We'll talk about sales activity and ratios, valuation changes, and market observations and new construction. And as you know, the city of St. Cloud has its own assessor's office by statute, actually. And so all of our slides will be based on only Stearns County and does not include the city of St. Cloud. So we started last April, which we'll do again this April. Continues through May of this year. Our quintile is in the upper 90% range. So our quintile is our inspections each year. We look at 1/5 of the county. Valuations were completed the last week of February, which was not too long ago. Which is very similar to last year. We had minimal overtime paid or comp time that was earned. Our notices of valuation classification are planned to be mailed on March 13th, possibly the 12th if they get them a little sooner. And we'll be combined in one envelope with the tax statements as well. So that's a big savings to the county that we've been able to realize for 5 years or so. What'd you say, Randy? Yeah. Which is it was a big push that we had a while back, and it seems to be successful.
You don't need to let us know when you mail them out because we'll find out sooner than you will.
Yeah. And Randy would probably like it if I mentioned there's an email option too for people to sign up. So not actually, I believe they'll get them a day or two earlier than if they were in the mail. So just a little plug for that. How many do we have now, Randy? Do you remember? 5,000, 7,000?
Yeah, somewhere in that area.
Yeah. So it grows each year. More people want to go paperless. So it's a nice option that they have out there. So, just looking at our overall time trends, so each year the Department of Revenue, based on our sales and sales activity throughout the county, we develop time trends that kind of tells us what the market is doing in each area of the county. And typically, the last few years we haven't had one on agricultural, apartment, or commercial industrial. And again, this year is the same, no time trends on those property types. So only on the residential and the seasonal recreational properties were time trends. And as you see on the top row there, 24 with the 25 assessment. So out west for the on water was about 7%, and off water, was about 7%. And the east off water was about 4%, as Sartell was around 3%. So somewhat consistent with the year before, a few changes there, but the on water was around 5%, which was almost the same as the previous year at 4.7%. So on water properties, it's a little different because we look at the whole county for on water properties versus it broken off into sections with east and west and Sartell for off water properties.
Why don't you include those other properties in the time trends? I'm just curious.
Which ones?
Ag and commercial.
They're included in a time trend, but we just didn't have the right percentages this year to make a time trend. And Randy could probably explain a little better on the ag side.
Yeah, the state does a study. It has to meet a statistical measure to be considered a trend. So it didn't quite meet the consistency to hit a statistical level that they need to see. It's like 90% confidence, they call it, confidence rating. So, and it just didn't hit that confidence level, the data. So it's just the number of sales. If it doesn't hit that confidence level, they say, no, it's not enough of us to make a decision if we should give a trend or not. So we'll still adjust our values based on the ratios, but they don't give us an actual time trend then.
And then is it continue to be difficult because there isn't a lot of sale of ag land? Sale of ag land is very limited, and you're supposed to do it within the jurisdiction, the township. Well, if certain townships have no sale of ag land, which is kind of getting more and more common, at least what I see, then you have to go to the neighboring townships, and that can vary dramatically. You know, prime farmland in Spring Hill is different than El Rosa, and if you have to go to El Rosa to get that, or if you go to New Munich, it's very different. So that's still a challenge for you yet, I would assume.
Yes, yep, and that's exactly the reason that we're not hitting that confidence level. Obviously, the bigger sample size you're gonna have, there's a better chance of hitting consistency. And yeah, I'll get into it in the next couple slides here, but the number of sales has gone down significantly on ag.
And then you still do that sheet that if there's things included in the land, buildings, equipment, you still separate that, correct?
Yep, personal property still comes out of there, correct.
And again, as old as I am, that wasn't the case in 1980. And so that was becoming more and more popular, where you sold the manure spreader and the milking equipment and everything with it, which drove up the price of land, which of course drove up the assessment. But now I don't know when that started. I think Gary started that. Speaking of Gary, I saw Gary at a fish fry in Kimball on Friday night. And I said, Jake's doing a great job. And he said, I don't pay attention to that anymore. Gary Grossing was his predecessor, Jeff Johnson's predecessor. So, but he did look good if anybody cares.
To your question too, we have a lot of small cities out there that don't have enough sales to make a sales study. So we it's similar to what your question was about the ag side too. So it's we have to look more globally in those cases. So getting to the ECRV, so electronic certificate of real estate value, our office processed 1,925 this year, which is up from 1,802 the previous year. You can see that back in 21 was our high at 2,647. So things are probably back to a little more normal than pre-COVID, I would say. We are always kind of hovering around that 2,000, I believe. So things ramped up for a little bit there when the market got hot, as you can see on the previous years here. But so we're at about 1,925, and we verify everything as far as commercial, industrial, apartments, ag, and any residential sales that appear out of the norm. If it's coming in around 90 to 105% or so of our value, we probably won't question it a whole lot. We'll still look at it for sure. But if it's coming in at 60% or 150%, we're definitely going to call on it and talk to the buyers and sellers and see what's going on with that sale. And as you can see, let's see here. So we got 918 overall residential sales. And those are qualified sales. So we probably cut the sales in about half from when we get them to when we mark them qualified. So there's about half the sales are qualified versus the overall amount. And you can just kind of look here on the blue columns there. We only had 7 apartment sales this year, but we were at about 92% on the sales ratio, which is really good. Apartments have, as you can see, we're more in the 80s the last 3 years. So it's we've been typically going up like 10% on apartments. This year we probably only have to go up 3 to 5. So commercial properties there's quite a few this year. There's 44, and we were around 92% on those as well, which is nice. We like to be in that 90 to 105% range. It helps with large value swings. We don't have to get into that too much. So we were probably only going up about 3% on commercial this year. Industrial, there's only one sale, and that's pretty typical with industrial. There's not a lot of sales out there of that property type. So one sale at 67% isn't really noteworthy. As you can see, the previous year we had 6 sales at about 90.5%. So that's a little better indicator when you get 6 sales. Anything higher is obviously going to be better, but 6 sales was a pretty good marker for us last year, and to be at 90.5, we were pretty happy with that. And then, you know, our residential, our overall, so you're counting the on and off water, we had 918 qualified sales. We're at 91%. And then if you just kind of follow that down, 809 off water and 109 on water. And those were around 90 to 91 as well. So everything came in pretty tight this year. We were pretty happy about it. And then, you know, I think Randy's going to talk a little bit later about the ag stuff, so we can kind of skip that for now. But as you can see towards the bottom, there was 9 rural vacant land sales and 23 ag vacant sales, and then ag improved and unimproved. So anything with buildings on it, there's combined with anything that was vacant was 36 total sales. So came in pretty good. You know, we're at 93, 92, and 84 on those. And rural vacant land, as you can see, if you follow that one across, you know, we were trending probably in that 70, 80, you know, sometimes in the 90% range. But rural vacant land is something that's still a pretty hot commodity out there, and I think he'll get into that as well in a little bit. So, and like I said earlier, just kind of an update on each segment here. Apartments, you know, we were at 90, 91, 92%, so we didn't have to go up a whole lot. So typical 2 to 5% changes. Only a few of them are going to have to go up as much as 10. Some will stay pretty flat. So it's pretty consistent across the county. We get sales out west. We get sales in Sartell, Way Park. It's been pretty consistent with our ratios on those. So not a lot of swings there. Commercial industrial with the 44 sales, that gave us a pretty good indicator of what we need to do. One thing we don't always like, the commercial industrial sales are combined. It's so the state has, you know, office and retail and office condo, you know, just all kinds of different stuff all lumped together. So it's hard to say that commercial is, without picking out each sector individually, which we do, our staff does a great job of that. So, you know, office properties might go up 1% this year versus retail might go up 2%. I'm just kind of throwing numbers out there, but it's a little different with that sector. So just keep that in mind when if somebody comes to you with a question about a commercial property, it might very well depend on what type of commercial property it is as to how values change there. So
You said 46, is that number someplace else?
yeah, it was back here,
Okay.
44.
Got it.
It's the second one down there. So
And then I assume like bars, restaurants versus storefront, you know, retail, you know, they all, and of course,
big
St. Cloud,
box
Way Park,
stores.
well,
Yeah.
St. Cloud's excluded, Way Park to
Sartell.
Paynesville. I mean,
Yep. It's
changes.
It's a very vast array of things that we deal with out there. So let's see. So seasonal, recreational, and residential, which is a combined study, we saw an 8.5% increase in the number of qualified sales over last year. So 918 this year versus 846 the previous year. And as I showed before, our ratio was around 91%. So overall, we're probably changing residential values in the 0 to 10% range. I would say a lot of them are going to be around 3 to 5, but there's pockets of the county that are changing differently. Some lakes maybe have to change a little bit more than off-water stuff. There's a couple of small cities out west that I think changed a little more than normal. We had a few more sales than we normally would out there. So yeah, it's just kind of, but the overall, we try and give a bigger picture of the overall. So, you know, 0 to 10% is probably gonna be pretty common for most people.
It's a
out
pretty
there.
big swing though, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And that we kind of have to blanket it that way because, you know, without pulling up each neighborhood of each county or each township or city, it would take, you know, the rest of the data to really explain the whole thing. But, so yeah, 0 to 10, I think last year it's very similar to last year, I would say. So.
And the number of sales really did, you know, obviously we had 846 last year, I don't remember that, but 918 sales, that's a lot of sales.
It is, yeah. And I think I was just looking at a market update on housing, and it showed from January 24 to January 25, the median home prices rose 5.8%. So that's fairly consistent with our 0 to 10, you know, they're talking 5.8. And then supply also grew 4.6%. So there's more houses for sale now than there was the previous year, which helps the buyer out. And 22.8% still sold above list price. And this is statewide, but kind of gives you an idea, which that 22.8 over list price is slightly down from the year before, but very similar. So things are still looking good out there. It's not, you kind of hear some of the doom and gloom sometimes when you talk to people or realtors or others out there, and we're really not seeing it. Things have been fairly healthy for another year, very similar to last year, like I said, so.
And as you referenced, the home sales, the year ago, my son bought a house, there was 10 homes on the market.
Yep.
Today, there's 50 in Paynesville, city limits of Paynesville. So in 1 year, it went from 10 to 50.
I think they had some new ones come online too.
Correct.
In Paynesville, right? So that probably
12
skews
of
that a
them.
little bit, yeah. But yeah, for sure, it's definitely growing. And that's what that statistic showed us too, 4.6%, I think, over the previous year. So, jumping ahead, I think Randy wants to talk a little bit about the bare land and the agricultural sales, so.
Yeah, so starting out here at bare land, less than 34 and a half acres. This is probably the sector we've seen some of the largest changes since the recession, just because people are looking to, get out of the city a little bit and get some land. And we break it down by 34 and a half acres because that's the state requirement for determining if it's going to go into our ag study. That's why we break it down that way as well. So less than 34 and a half, and then the next slide will be greater than 34 and a half. So you can see here, driven by pressures from seasonal hunting, hobby uses. Mostly the middle part of the county is probably where we've seen the biggest change in this sector, just because it's still within a reasonable distance from maybe the St. Cloud area that where people are commuting to for work. I would say the hybrid working has probably changed this market a little bit too, where more and more people are working from home. They're not having to commute into town. So I think that's another reason that this sector continues to be strong. So jumping in then to the acres over 34 and a half, which would be primarily your agricultural lands. There's some rural vacant land that gets lumped into this study. I think there was 8 sales in rural vacant land, but primarily agricultural land. And again, this year, like we've seen in the last several years, continues to increase. It slowed down. Obviously, the commodities have come down in price from a few years ago. Milk prices have come down. And then obviously interest rates have creeped up, and input costs have also come up in that time. So, but the biggest driver still seems to be the supply, which Commissioner Bertram had mentioned. It seems to be a big driver for the ag market, that they're just it's holding the market to appreciating it in value, and there's still enough farmers out there that are trying to buy up land for the next generation that we're seeing. They maybe have saved up over the last several years, and they're looking to buy once something pops up for sale, and that's what we continue to see. The number of sales, as Commissioner Bertram pointed out, has decreased by almost half of what we had 2 years ago. The last 2 years, we were around 35 sales. 2 years prior to that, we were in the 50s. So it's definitely come down. The supply has come down a lot, so I think it's kept the demand up there as well. So,
do you know what the variation is, Randy? Again, a very varied county, sand, wet, but just average price of land. Do you know what that is off the top of your head?
Yeah, so the bottom part of the slide there, the average.
Oh, there it is.
Yep, the average that we're at right now is 7,300 per acre now, up from 7,000 last year, which is around.
Boy, that does really vary, doesn't it? Because there was a farm in Greenville that was sold for 9,500.
Yes, yeah. So keep in mind now, this obviously the good stuff's going to be closer to 10,000. We are starting to see $10,000 an acre sales now, and then on the lower end, you're starting to see the sandier stuff still in the 5 to 6 probably. So.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Persky.
Randy, does it matter if there's a building credit on the property?
Yes.
As far as the sale? Yeah.
Yeah, we do still see that as a factor. If they're in the Green Acres program, they don't have to pay taxes on that because that's deferred then in that case. But yeah, we definitely still see the building entitlement have an impact. I would say, in the western part of the county, those entitlements are probably valued anywhere from 20 to 30,000. That way, add additional to the value of the property.
Okay.
So yeah, and we try to track that based off. We'll do a paired sales analysis from a sale that took place without an entitlement to one that did. We try to do analysis every so often to see, are we still in line with what those entitlements are being transferred for? So, okay.
And we're still not tracking what the sale of those credits are we?
We've heard a few times
just word of mouth.
Yeah, and sometimes it's neighbors selling them to each other, so it's kind of not really a straight up sale, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it doesn't get tracked. It's not through the East or V's or anything like that. So.
And what do you hear?
Yeah, it's. I mean, There's been a few that have been pretty spot on with our numbers. There's been some where they, you know, might have traded a tractor or something for it, so it's not always,
A dollar value.
yeah. But,
Okay.
yeah, so Randy was talking about tillable, so that's the tillable at the bottom of that stat there, so 7,300 an acre.
Yes. Okay, and then just jumping in the overall value change that we had this year, we're up about 5% from last year. Again, this is slightly less than last year. We had about a 6% increase that we saw last year. And then that growth, this includes new construction and market value change of $915 million.
I think the year before was around 1.1 billion. So as
Okay.
you can see, a little bit less than prior, so.
Okay. So this slide is just looking at the overall new construction that we had in the county this year. You can see it's very similar to last year, 198 million, and even up from the last several before that. So we still see plenty of new construction in our county. You know, Jeff alluded to the new homes in Paynesville. We're still seeing a number of new homes increase. I think that'll be the next slide here, but you can see that 22% of the EMV increase was due to new construction, so. I think this is our last slide, just showing the number of homes that we had in the last year. 256 up from 237 last year. I know interest rates have come down maybe 1% or so, and I'm thinking that might have been the biggest factor in seeing a little bit of a climb in this area. You know, but nobody knows for sure, of course. But so, and just, you know, looking forward to it, seems like you know, we don't see any big downturns in new construction the next year either, so.
Yeah, I think interest rates are almost exactly down 1% from the previous year. And so our 256 is about that 5-year average. So that's kind of where we're at right now. As obviously 2020 probably skewed that a little bit with the COVID year there, but then, you know, the big ramp up the next year too. So yeah, a lot of swings, a lot of variation, but you know, to be in that 90 to 92% on most of our property types this year, we were pretty happy with that. And you know, great work to our staff. It's, you know, they're the ones out in the field looking at these properties and, you know, knocking on doors and verifying sales. And, you know, Randy and I are more of the high level in office. We're, you know, taking care of some of the higher, bigger problems, bigger issues, you know, and helping everyone out with what they need to do. And so, yeah, great job to them and great job to Randy as well. He's been one heck of a right-hand man. So it's been another good year.
And it shows people, and again, when people talk about tax and everything, you just don't pick numbers out of the sky.
No.
I mean, there's a very detailed process to it. And I had the opportunity to go with one of your folks to do the first appraisal of a home, and just going through the checklist and what they look for and what they identify. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot of pieces to it, you know, in the system and just the verification process that, I mean, really the sales are the kind of the heart and soul of our assessment. You know, we need to be spot on with those, and I think we've done a pretty good job of that, so.
And the biggest goal, I think, at least for me, is that you don't just tax for the sake of taxing. There's a rationale to it, and there's a process to it. And you want to be fair to everybody, and you want to be reasonable that we don't overtax the residents, but it's got to be a standardized process, and
For
that's
sure.
what it is.
Yeah, it's very statute driven, so, you know, and you've had questions, I know other commissioners have as well, and, you know, we've been able to recite statute for reasons we've done the things we've done, and why values need to change the way they do, and we've been, you know, questioned by taxpayers as well, and we need to produce a reason why our values where it's at, and I think we've, you know, been able to do that for the most part, so.
My favorite assessment story is when I wanted to put pavers in our driveway, and I told the assessor at the time, now you're not going to increase the value of my property. No, the driveways are separate. And then we did a little patio area, but boy, he nailed me on the patio.
Yeah,
So
we'll pick those up.
the pavers are okay in the driveway, but we should have made the patio bigger and put a car there. Then
There you go.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Clark.
Thank you. This is always a good and important presentation, and glad it's available for our taxpayers to see. I guess just two items to maybe, one to reinforce and one to point out for those who may be listening. One is, it is hard for people when their values are going up, and that means their taxes are going up and their insurance is going up, and they're not going to be able to do anything about it for a while. That's that's a pretty hard pain point, and yet you do a really good job. I think it's important for us to continue to acknowledge that. And then the other piece is, thank goodness, at least for some, the changes in the homestead exemptions have happened, because at least for some, that's made a real difference. And we're going to need, with your help, to keep looking at, are there going to be continued opportunities to engage in the legislature? Because honestly, right now, there's a lot of proposals out there that cost shift to us, which would increase property taxes, and they may come across to some, the way they talk about it, as being neutral, either at the federal or the state level, when they're not. It's a tax, it's a tax, it's a tax, it's a tax, and these are not the taxes that we want to raise if we can avoid it. So you've got the valuation piece, and then how we're trying to keep the levy down, and very much appreciate the work that you and your staff do.
Thanks, Commissioner Clark. Yeah, just to speak to that, I think, value is one thing and taxes is another, right? So it's hard for us because sometimes people just want their value to, they want to appeal their value because they want their taxes to be lower, not necessarily because they think their value is wrong. So we run into that fairly often, and it makes our job a little harder. And again, just because our values might be increasing doesn't mean taxes are. That is totally a separate thing, a budgetary thing for townships, cities, school districts, county. So kind of two separate things, but yeah, we definitely answer a lot of questions on those, and we will as soon as these notices hit the mail, as early as late this week. So.
And Mr. Chair, thank you.
Clark.
That's the point I was trying to make, was that sometimes it's hard to separate it when you're looking at it. And I remember last year when we got ours, the city of St. Cloud's went up drastically compared to what we're paying on the county side. And so I know everybody's got different challenges they're trying to address. And yet when you open that up and you're going, oh, it's helpful to keep reminding people.
Right,
Thank
exactly.
you.
That's a good point too. When they do open that up, take a look at the line items, see which one is going up or down, or that'll give you a good idea where the budgets were changing and why the taxes are doing what they're doing. So.
And the public really does need to pay attention to that, because where I live, the city raised their levy significantly. And so, of course, people look at the bottom number. Well, if you've got an excess levy referendum or a referendum from the school district, you've got an aggressive city, it peels the county, on what happens there. And that certainly has a huge impact, and people don't pay attention oftentimes as detailed as they should, but it is what it is. So.
Right, that's one of the first questions we'll ask when, our phone number is on the value notice, so
Can you make it bigger?
Probably call us. I was hoping to put Randy Schreifel's number on that one too, but he won't let me. But yeah, so they usually call us. So that's one of the first questions, we'll ask them to kind of line item it themselves if they have it in front of them, and do a little research and kind of see where things are headed, so.
And none of us like increased taxes. Nobody likes paying more for anything. But my question always is, would you sell your property for what it's being assessed for?
Exactly. Yep.
And if they're honest, including me, no.
Yeah.
I would sell it for more. I wouldn't sell it for what it's assessed at. So keep it that way.
Right.
Yep.
And we're like we've said in the past, we're always a little behind too, because our sales study starts, a year and a half ago. So we're looking at sales from then up until, October. So end of September. So those are our sales that we look at, and so we're a few months behind when the actual value statements come out or things like that. So it's just the way the system's set up, and that's kind of how it goes. So. And
the work that the county has to do to track school referendums, different things for communities, and all of that. It's amazing.
Right.
I mean, it's a lot of work.
Yeah, and we've had increasing markets for most of our last how many years. Hasn't been a lot of drop in value since way back in 2008 probably. So yeah, people are just used to that increase all the time, and there might be a time where values do decrease and taxes may not follow that. And we ran into that before. Those budgets are still there. They still have to be paid. So your value might start coming down and the taxes will probably stay or continue to increase a little bit. But yeah, it's all cyclical. So.
Okay. Well, thanks for the report, and not that it's the most romantic thing to hear, but thanks for the report, and we'll keep in touch.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Issues by commissioners. Commissioner Clark?
Thank you. I'm going to try to limit it in part because we're pretty much over time. Joe, you might have some other things to add, but it was good to be with our delegation last week, along with the National Association. And while there's a lot of uncertainty, there's a lot of uncertainty about what is going to happen next. And the staff and our members were really good about talking about that they want to continue to work with us and better understand what the impacts of changes could be. So that was probably one of the more hopeful things to walk away with. And I will leave it at that for right now.
Okay, Commissioner Notch?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to recognize today is Township Day. Most of the townships in the area have their annual meetings today. Some still conduct their elections yet on today. Some have moved to the general election cycle. So, good luck and congratulations to all those who have filed and hopefully win their term. And we do definitely appreciate our townships.
Yep, well said. Commissioner Persky?
Yeah, I just want to echo what Terrell had mentioned. Yeah, there's a lot of uncertainty and angst out in DC as far as where we're headed with a number of things, whether it's transportation, immigration, human services, the ag bill, all those things. Also, it was good to have Jill out there and Melissa out there looking at the administration and health and human services parts of that. And again, we were, I thought, well received by both the senators and our Congress people as well. So I thought it was a productive meeting in light of the chaos and confusion out there. So, and then also, I'm just a little bit curious about what efforts, might have been made to reduce that conflict out in St. Wendell Township, between the flower shop people and those neighbors. There certainly is concern by those neighbors about the peace and quiet they've enjoyed and where that might be headed in the future. So I hope we can get that on the radar and maybe make sure they can reduce their angst. So.
Okay, yep, the township stuff I was going to mention, and then a happy St. Patrick's Day to our Irish population. My family and I will be in Pearl Lake and Padua at some point during the weekend, even though we're not Irish, but we want to support the Irish community.
Mr. Chair, I'll come do a jig with you.
There you go. With that, the meeting's adjourned.
Yeah, almost.